maximum warfare everywhere, all the time, in connection with the redistricting battle that Republicans launched. I stand by it. You can continue to criticize me for it. I don't give a damn about your criticism.
A few moments later.
Got some more breaking news. This just handed out moments ago from the Virginia State Supreme Court ruling the process to redraw that state's congressional maps is unconstitutional. They had a referendum on this. Statewide, Shannon Bream is here to join Instant Reaction. Shannon, welcome to our coverage. Good day to you. A couple of things here just come to mind. Barack Obama was out there campaigning to make sure people were into this issue, would get out. It passed, but not by a lot, but it did pass. And it would have effectively, Democrats believe, made it 10 to 1. Democrats to Republicans. I think the current figure is 65.
Right.
So this is thrown out. Is that the end of the line?
I mean, it sounds like it, because this was an issue of the Virginia Constitution. It was a state law issue, and critics of this referendum have said from the beginning that Democrats were on thin ice because they did not follow procedures as outlined by state law and state constitution. And what the court ended up saying here is that violation irreparably undermined the integrity of the entire voting referendum, said it makes it null and void, and for that reason they say the congressional district maps issued by the court in 2021, the old maps, are the ones that they've got to use for the upcoming congressional election. Now, this was a state matter. Virginia's Supreme Court, the highest court in that state, it's a Commonwealth, they'll remind you, made this decision. Now, it's not out of the realm of possibility that challengers to this decision would try to find some federal hook for it, to try to get to the Supreme Court to say that there is some U.S. constitutional violation in the way that this ruling was made. It's a very tough ask, but I wouldn't be surprised if they try to do it, because what have you got to lose at this point?
Boy. So, we gotta talk about what yet again is another major defeat for Democrats. You love to see it, as the Virginia Supreme Court has now officially struck down the new gerrymandered maps from Democrats, where they basically drew out representation from rural conservative voters in Virginia, okay, in order to give themselves a 10-1 advantage in the state over Republicans. So they went from 6 Democrat seats, 5 Republican seats, to 10 Democrat seats, 1 Republican seat, and they call that democracy, right? That is what Democrats did. And the Supreme Constitutional, you didn't do this right. You're going to have to use your old maps going into the midterms, okay? And I want to talk about it because the math ain't mathing for Democrats at this point. Their gerrymandering efforts has officially backfired, right? I'm talking about big time. And this is why you have liberals currently online losing their minds over this decision from the Virginia Supreme Court. Take a look.
We know this is wrong. We know it. We know that Virginia went to their citizens and asked them to cast their vote to see if they wanted to redistrict, to get more seats for Democrats in the House. And Virginians answered. They said yes. Republicans got mad and said no, we don't want to have that. They went to the courts. The courts blocked it. Now they're all the way at the Supreme Court, and they have ruled that this is unconstitutional. When we've clearly seen this happen in Republican-led states, and it was practically fine. Texas did it, it was okay. Louisiana did it, it is okay. Other states are now doing it, and it's deemed okay. Now Virginia has lost 4 seats that they could have gained in the House. Now, you know, racists and KKK members and Jim Crow lovers all used to say that the South will rise again. Is this what they meant? This is not about elections. This is about white people in the South making sure that black people have no voice. It is about white people in the South still feeling like black people should be second-class citizens. It is about white people who watch their grandfathers and their fathers celebrating the downfall of black people, telling black people where they could sit, where they could drink, where they could go to school, where they couldn't cross the street at, and now those white folks want their turn. I want y'all to remember something, that the people right now making these votes and making these choices in the South, most of them grew up in the Jim Crow era. And the reason they were so excited for Weazel is because this is the era he wanted to go back to, before black people had civil rights, before we could vote, before in the eyes of this government we mattered. We should have took them all out during the Civil War. Then we didn't have to worry about the good old boys.
It's so frustrating. Like, even just personally, I worked really hard on that campaign. I left because You know. So the Virginia Supreme Court has struck down our new maps. Our new maps that we just voted on a few weeks ago were 10-1, like 10 blue districts to 1 red district. Our existing maps are 6-5. So we were trying to pick up about 4 seats. This is very annoying.
Well, we have some more bullshit to deal with today. Shortly after that Trump-humping judge put a block on the Virginia redistricting that was approved by the voters, I personally said the Virginia Supreme Court was going to uphold the referendum, because now, hands down, they weren't worried about it. They thought Virginia was going to uphold it. But of course, we've got some bullshit to wade through. Despite the redistricting done in Virginia being approved by the voters, the Virginia Supreme Court struck it down based on them saying that the Democrats did not follow proper procedure. Meanwhile, all of these other Republican states are apparently allowed to gerrymander without even allowing people to vote on it. And that's totally fine.
Yeah. See, they hear that. There's a whole lot of coke from liberals over this, right? Because they're trying to tell themselves that, well, see, we didn't really need gerrymandering. That gerrymandering was done as a response to Republicans, and we're going to perform well on our old maps anyways. Well, if that's the case, right, if you feel like Democrats are going to perform well with the old maps, then why did you gerrymander? Right? I'm just saying, why did you do it in the first place if you felt like you could win before? You only did it because you felt like you were going to lose. So the reality is that Democrats did this out of desperation. It is now backfired, and we're going to get into it because red states now are emboldened to redistrict their states, and you have another red state that is looking to redistrict, a different one than the ones we've already talked about, Tennessee, Mississippi, Louisiana, right? We have more red states. Florida is one too. We have more red states who are looking to redistrict. So, without further ado, let's get into BS now. Cope and Seed over this.
We have major breaking news on the redistricting fight between Republicans and Democrats nationwide. The Virginia Supreme Court just struck down the new Democrat-friendly redistricting plan that voters just approved at the ballot box a few weeks ago. Let's bring in MS Now's legal affairs reporter, Fallon Gallagher, and this ruling just came out. I know you're still reading it. Fallon, what are you learning?
Yeah, this is there were a few cases pending before the Virginia Supreme Court, and this is the first one that happened to reach it. So the Virginia State Supreme Court has struck down the new congressional map that was approved by voters on the basis that the special session, the special legislative session that was called to create this map was a violation of the state's constitution. And I want to read from a key graph in this ruling. It says, on March 6, 2026, the General Assembly of Virginia submitted to Virginia voters a proposed constitutional amendment that authorizes partisan gerrymandering of congressional districts in the Commonwealth. We hold that the legislative process employed to advance this proposal violated Article 7, Section 1 of the Constitution of Virginia. This constitutional violation incurably taints the resulting referendum vote and nullifies its legal efficacy. Now, of course, they are taking issue here with the way that this legislative session was called. I need to double check, but I believe it was because state legislators called that session and they don't actually have the authority to do so. But this is basically, they're overturning the map on the basis of which it was created. This is a final ruling because it is from the state Supreme Court. They might be able to try a different way if they call the legislative session in a different way and try redistricting again, but it appears at this point, as again, we are still reading this decision, that this map will not be in play for 2026.
And that being said, what does that mean for the voters and what maps they're actually using?
If this map, this new map is blocked, theoretically they will be using the maps that have been on the books before this. So the map that they would have used in 2024 should be the map that will hold now for the midterm elections this year.
And so politically, this is bad news for Democrats, good news for Republicans. Fallon, I'll let you get back to reading in so you can bring us more details as you get them. Thank you.
Hilarious. You can tell this host right here did not like delivering this news to the audience, right? She certainly did not enjoy the reality check, which is that Democrats are not going to get the seats they thought they were going to get. But again, this is officially backfired because now you have red states who are emboldened to redistrict. Again, we've already talked about Florida, Mississippi, Louisiana, you have Tennessee, okay, etc. Now we have South Carolina, right? South Carolina is getting in on the game.
Breaking news out of the State House tonight. Lawmakers approving a resolution that leaves the door open for the General Assembly to redraw South Carolina's voting maps after the legislative session ends next week. The move comes after an 87-25 vote by House lawmakers this evening. Now, the push for redistricting comes after a recent U.S. Supreme Court ruling tied to a case in Louisiana that determined the state's congressional maps are unconstitutional. Now, here in South Carolina, the district in question would likely be the 6th congressional district, according to many at the State House. That has been held for years by Congressman Jim Clyburn. It is the state's only congressional district held by a Democrat.
Yeah, and it's time for him to go. He's been in Congress for way too long. He's up there in age. It's time for him to go. Right? It's time for him to go. Get rid of him.
Jordan was following the debate in the House all day, right up until that vote. She's live in the studio now. What is the latest here, Kiana?
Well, Brian, the House voted to approve an amendment to this year's Sine Die resolution that will allow congressional redistricting to be taken up after the legislative session ends next week. Now, next Thursday is the official last day of the session. The push across at least 4 states comes after a Supreme Court ruling that radically changes how congressional maps must be drawn under the Voting Rights Act. The Supreme Court ruled that drawing those maps along racial lines is not allowed. Critics have already filed to run and have been campaigning, with 1 month until the June primary. Democrats also say Republican leaders are caving in due to pressure from Washington, D.C. and President Trump. Supporters say the amendment that passed tonight simply gives lawmakers the option of taking up redistricting after the session officially ends.
This resolution that comes to us in the wake of the Supreme Court decision that came down just last week allows the General Assembly to come back, though it doesn't require, to come back and address those questions and make the determinations necessary to answer those questions as best they can.
Let us not follow the path of really and truly disenfranchising the voice of so many people.
I really don't know where I stand on maps being redrawn or not being redrawn. I've got to think about that. But I do know that we shouldn't cave to outside pressure at the expense of us making a common sense decision.
Now, the reason this action even had to be taken is because Governor Henry McMaster said he would not call for a special session at the State House to address the redistricting issue. Just yesterday, we talked to the governor about the issue, and he again stood firm on that position about calling lawmakers back to the State House to effectively work overtime on this. However, he did point out that lawmakers should pay attention to the U.S. Supreme Court ruling and take action to make sure South Carolina is in good standing.
Anytime.